Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dialogues from the President's Corner featuring Dr. Czarda, President of Greensboro College, as well as our special guest today, Kim Strabel, Director of Athletics here at Greensboro College. How are you both doing today?
Awesome.
Doing well today. Summer's starting to feel like summer, which is nice, but it'll be over soon.
Thankfully, it'll be over soon. So we're continuing our conversation today by focusing about athletics here at Greensboro College. So Dr. Czarda, there have been some recent changes that have affected GC athletics, such as conference realignment and the addition of women's triathlon, along with national topics like NIL, which is name, image, and likeness, and sports gambling. Do you want to talk about how those changes are affecting Greensboro College?
Matthew, I will take a few minutes just to put it in context, but I really want to defer to Kim to talk about more what's happening at Greensboro College. But I'd probably talk about three things that some of the listeners and viewers need to know as they listen to us. Number one is that Greensboro College is NCAA Division III. And that's important for everyone to understand. This is not the big power conference kind of athletics we're talking about here. Division III is non-scholarship. That means these students are coming here for their education, and they actually pay the college to have this experience in intercollegiate athletics. The second broad area is conference alignment and realignment. It's taking place all over the country, all the time, the SEC, the Big Ten, all of that. And that has been true at the Division III level as well. I'm in my 14th year here at Greensboro College, and when I first came here, the USA South was a Virginia-North Carolina conference. For a lot of reasons, but mainly driven by realignment, we realized if enough schools left, we might be too small as a conference. And there was another conference to the southeast of us called the Great South. Very similar, and they had already shrunk to the point where they did not have some of the automatic qualifiers, which Kim probably will say something about. So we had a very conscious strategy we actually executed over the last 10 years to grow very large. The USA South became the largest Division III conference in the country at 19 schools. But as of August 1st, 2022, the long-planned split took place, and now we are back to being a Virginia-North Carolina conference. And so we'll talk more about that. And there are a lot of reasons why that made sense to grow, and it made sense to then split. The last thing I'd mention is the importance of intercollegiate athletics to all colleges and universities. At small private colleges, it is not untypical to have more than half of your traditional undergraduate population somehow involved with athletics. They're on a team, athletic training, marching band, cheerleading, whatever it might be, and that is true for Greensboro College. We're over 50% involvement with athletics, and that's our culture. Got to be careful here, Matthew. I'm old, but I'm not that old. but the reality is, not too many generations ago, young people were involved with their church choir, 4-H, Boys and Girls Clubs, and others. And today, primarily, it's athletics. And so with that.
Okay, so Kim, thinking about GC athletics over this past year, 2022, 2023, do you want to talk about the state of athletics as we're about to enter the 2023 fall semester?
Well, sure. Thank you, Matthew. And in athletics, we will find out people, coaches, athletic directors, whatever, are always dissatisfied, because we always want to be better and do better. But we're dissatisfied but not discouraged. There's a lot of good things happening here. It depends on what matrix you want to look through to determine how to answer that question. I look at win-loss records. 3 of our teams had fantastic years. Led by women's basketball, which finished the second year with just 1 loss in the conference. And so they went to the NCAAs, which was awesome. Women's softball had a great year and ended up in the finals with Pfeiffer for the league championship. And men's wrestling, which one of the newer sports at Greensboro College, added to the roster, had a full schedule, ended up with a 3-time All-American, 3 academic All-Americans. So some great news there. When I look at, Dr. Czarda mentioned about enrollment and number of student athletes, with one of the matrix we use is full roster sizes, because that's very important to us to make sure that we're maximizing our enrollment potential. So of those 10, 8 are underachieving a little bit. They tend to be the smaller sports where it becomes more difficult versus the large team. But with enrollment being what it is and a good chunk of the student body being with athletics, obviously we take that seriously, and roster sizes are part of that. And the last thing I'll say is if we want to look at coaching success, we just lost our head women's basketball coach in Heather Macy, leaving for Barry University in Miami, Florida. Good for her, a Division II school where she will be very successful. But she had another fantastic year. Our first year men's wrestling coach, Justin Hardy, is an amazing guy, 4-time academic All-American, 4-time All-American at Chapel Hill, undefeated in the ACC. Not a bad resume,
Never
right?
had.
Right, and he wears 4X, so he is a legitimate heavyweight. You know, he can handle himself very well. We've added coaches like Meredith Mills, our softball coach in her second year. Again, just delighted with her success. Chris Fennessy, our baseball, that's a very large roster, and Chris is doing everything from building that roster to moving a lot of our early season games to Rocker Stadium in High Point, an all artificial turf facility that's really a unique experience for a lot of athletes. So when I look at men's golf, we brought back Steve Johnson, who is incredible. Steve's been a teaching pro for a number of years, has his own studio. He joined us in mid-year with golf and got us very close. We finished second in the conference, which was always a challenge with Methodist being in there. And they, of course, were defending national champions the previous year. They came close to getting back into the NCAAs. They were nationally ranked, but did not get in the Pool C. So, under, again, whichever matrix you want to look at, I think there's a lot of good news, a lot of things that we can be satisfied with and feel good about, but we're continuing to build.
There are a lot of students on campus involved with athletics in some way. Do you want to talk about the culture of athletics on Greensboro College's campus?
Yeah, Matthew, I think probably a quick historical context would make sense. The first, that people who may not know, who may be watching or listening, may not know that Kim Strable was here as athletic director for quite a while. And then he left to go be very involved with the sports mission here locally. And he's been back now for 3 years. But Kim Strable had a lot to do with building athletics at Greensboro College. There was a time when athletics consisted of synchronized swimming, badminton, and I'm forgetting one more. And it's really the last generation, especially Division III, where athletics has become such a core of the place. But I think it's fair to say that intercollegiate athletics at Greensboro College is part of the fabric of what we are.
And I would add to that one thing about athletics at Division III, when a lot of people equate when you don't offer athletic scholarships that you must be basically a club level or intramural level talent. And while there are schools, even at Division II and I, that are not on the high scale with their programs, it could be nothing further from the truth. Our athletes are exceptional in our conference. In the NCAA, when we went to the basketball, as good a year as we had, we got paired against the number one team in the country, ranked New York University, all year long, which was a challenge. We gave them a good scare, but ultimately didn't win that game. But a lot of people don't understand that for athletes that are coming into colleges, they've spent a good chunk of their young life in sports, and sometimes multiple sports. So their parents and their families have invested a lot in their athletic career, refining their skills and so forth. They are going to go somewhere to college where their sport is available and where they hopefully can play. So for us, we're never short in getting a lot of interest from students. Usually, I just looked at one today from who's a rising sophomore who's already doing their work and trying to fill our questionnaire out and so forth. So it's a part of their DNA. It's, sometimes I call that ego, which does slip into all sports at all levels. But again, that's some of that self-confidence and so forth. There's a little bit of that's pretty good, as long as they don't get carried away.
Hey, Matthew, just occurred to me while Kim was talking, there's another measure I hadn't thought about, just popped into my head actually.
Oh, yes? About
how athletics has changed as part of the culture of Greensboro College. When I first arrived almost 14 years ago, 1 or 2 members of the Board of Trustees had been student athletes here. Today the number is 7.
Oh, wow. That really just shows how students at Greensboro College, like how they were athletes as students, and then as they've transitioned into alumni, how they still have like that connection among themselves. So
exactly. And again, years ago, it was church music and it was home economics, and those days are gone, but athletics is very much a part of it today.
I know we've been talking about like the past and the present. So Kim, looking into the future as well as like the summer right now, is the athletic department right now working on any plans for like the summer in terms of initiatives and projects?
Sure, a lot. I won't mention all of them, but recruiting is always at the top of the list no matter what you want to talk about. It's all about attracting athletes for our teams. Obviously, we're looking at good athletes, those who can play at our level in our conference, and we want to play in the NCAAs. I was asked several years ago what was the overall goal for the athletic program at Greensboro College. I had to think about that a while, and eventually said, well, we need to be the champion or the gateway through which the champion must pass. And that attitude is what we're trying to ingrain in our coaches and student athletes and so forth, and that requires having quality athletes as well. We are working on some improvements in the Reynolds Family Student Life Center, where most of our coaches are housed. We're working on some improvements to that facility. We are trying to finish up our preparations for esports, a new sport that was added last year, but through a variety of circumstances, we weren't able to get it launched because of some of that being COVID related and the logistics backup and getting parts and getting equipment you need. But we expect to be up and running this fall. We've got a great partnership with the City Parks and Recreation Department because we don't own some of our own facilities that we would need. That includes softball, which moved to Barber Park to Wright Penn Stadium. Fantastic facility for us. The city's rolled up their sleeves to make that happen. We also play at the Ted Leonard Center for baseball, which is on the west side of the city. So those are important relationships, and we've been good friends with the city too, with the Greenway and some of that land that they had to cross to get to that. So we're also, lastly, I'll mention that in just about 3 weeks we'll have some of the best wrestlers in the state of North Carolina, girls and boys. Who many of them are state champions. They are preparing for the national championship. So the camp is at Greensboro College for them to prepare for that with some of the best coaches in the state. So those are just some of the things we're doing that, as people in admissions will tell you, if you can get somebody to your campus, your chances of having them become an applicant and matriculant is much, much greater. And that's part of the philosophy here.
Even though there aren't games going on, it's not a cool down period for you all.
Absolutely not. It's a heated up, and a lot of. I was talking to Coach Johnston, our women's soccer coach, who was involved in a search committee Zoom call, and he was out field side in the middle of a huge soccer tournament here in Greensboro. So yeah, it never stops.
I know what you were just talking about with like esports and these new facilities. For you, both you and Dr. Czarda, are there still any avenues and outlets out there in terms of like long view of possible changes and additions to the athletics department?
Yeah, Matthew, maybe I'll take that first because Kim and I have been talking for a while. As you said, we've added women's triathlon. We're talking about bringing back cross country, which we had years ago. Women's sand volleyball has become an NCAA sport, and a number of our contemporaries are looking at doing that. Maybe somewhere down the road, we're not sure yet, maybe women's rugby. And you hear me mention women because we do have the issue of Title IX and making sure things are balanced. And when you have a football team and a large baseball team, we always have to manage that. But we were founded as a college for women. And even our athletic logo has been changed recently to make sure that the female lioness was as prominent as the lion, because we are the pride, we're not the lions. And we really do keep that in mind. And who knows? 10 years ago, nobody would have mentioned esports. To me, esports is Pong, right? So you never know what's coming down the road.
Well, and all the sports that Dr. Czarda mentioned are all very real. A lot of these, even triathlon, is now approved by the NCAA as a championship sport with that, which is important. So even things like cheerleading, a lot of that is morphed into a performance of which they call stunting. And my granddaughter actually is one of those, and I can assure you what they have to pay with their costumes and their travel to do what they do. It's amazing. So could we tap into that at Greensboro College? Well, yes. We've got the facilities and we've got the know-how to make that happen. So the sky is, you don't say the sky's the limit, but a lot of schools, when you look around the country, even in Division III, have in the high 20s and even the low 30s the number of sports, including bass fishing and you name it.
Skeet, sporting clay, mountain biking.
Yeah, it's all over the place. So to talk about women's rugby, I helped when I was with the Greensboro Sports Commission to really get some of that rugby activity here at Greensboro. There's some schools knocking it out with 40, 50 women in their program. So it's something we obviously have to take a strong look at.
That's really interesting. When we were talking about like this conversation we were going to have, I wasn't expecting bass fishing and Pong and esports to come up. So
the world of modern athletics. What I'm fascinated by I sometimes surfing around the channels like people do, and there's TV shows of people watching people play esports.
And there's an audience out there. There really is.
Big audience out there.
And there's a huge audience. It's shocking. And our coach, she's a gamer. She's ranked in the top 1.5% in North America in League of Legends. I had that quizzical look on my face. I said, I'm assuming that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is.
And she said, well, yeah. She was trying to be humble. She said, well, yeah, but she said it's a passion of hers too, which is what we hope will translate into a lot of students coming here for esports.
That sounds really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
So thank you again, Kim, for coming by, and thank you again, Dr. Czarda, for this conversation. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next episode.